easy, but I found, at least this week, that if I'm able to keep that perspective that everywhere I go, I'm going to be this, it makes my life a lot easier. Matthew chapter 5, and we're going to start with verse number 13. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 13. Our Lord tells us there, speaking to his disciples, which we know we are his, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet." So he's telling us we're the salt of the earth. Now, if you think about what salt was used back in those days, it was used as a seasoning, maybe also as a preservative. And so he's telling us that, but he's giving us a warning here too. It says, if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? Now, I don't know if you've ever tried, they have what's called salt substitutes. And someone said Mrs. Dash and things like that, but they even have things where they try to make it taste like salt and have the effects of salt. I've only had it maybe once, maybe twice, but it doesn't really work the same way as salt. It's just a substitute. They're trying to match what salt is, but it's not really the real deal. And it doesn't work like the real deal. Now, there's some salt that really brings out what's in a dish. I think there's different types of things. We were talking about up at Northwest, we have some people that go to school up there I was talking with, and they were saying the food isn't always that good. And so what we came up with, a conclusion is there's sometimes that salt makes food taste significantly better. It just lacks some flavor, and salt really adds to it. There are some situations that salt doesn't do anything. I mean, it's just bad food, and you have a really burnt piece of meat, salt's not going to really make it come alive. And sometimes salt will have a medium effect. Now, the same can be true if we are the salt of the earth. When we look at the world is in sad shape. There's so much that's going on. The world needs help. The world needs to be seasoned. It needs to be made better in a lot of ways. There are some settings that we can enter as children of God, if we're really the salt of the earth and haven't lost our saltiness, that we can truly affect and make things a lot better. There are some people's lives or some situations that we can enter into that are just really messed up. And these people, maybe their conscience is seared, they're hardened to the truth, and we can still be the salt of the earth, but it might not change everything. And there's some situations where I think most of my life falls, where it's somewhere in between. We're able to improve things, maybe not as much as we would hope to, but we are able to impact the world in maybe ways we don't fully understand for God's purpose. But it gives us that warning, if we lose our saltiness, that we might as well get just tossed out and thrown on the ground. Melvin gave me some advice the other day because I have this fig tree in my yard that just grows like crazy. And he said, why don't you try salting the ground, rub salt into it, try to get that thing from stop growing. Now, it worked. Now, the tree hasn't hardly grown that much. It's probably not going to grow up past the shed anymore. And salt sometimes has that effect. When we look at the way that Jesus interacted with people, Jesus was awesome. Jesus fully did the will of his Father. But there were people that seemed like they were stopped from what they had been doing because of God. Sometimes in positive ways, it served my purpose that this tree stopped growing. There are some people that even if we're salt of the earth, they're going to not necessarily stop serving Satan, though. There's some things that there's still some grass that's growing up. There's still some things that can happen that God is at work. If we're the salt of the earth, if we are being the seasoning God's called us to be, that's what's important.